Because we know people who should be successful, but what? They're not successful. Why?
So that's his why buy. But what is he afraid of?
My personal style of education, but still entertain them, bring them along with stories, right?
People who are what? Killing it. If you're a real man, what do you do? I'm not the only one.
You can't wait to tell your spouse. You can't wait to tell your colleague. You can't wait to go to work and tell somebody. And you're like, oh my God, I can't wait. So what happened?
If you haven't seen my TV show, you should get cable. That's what you need to do.
From doing a TV show to doing corporate events, I've been so lucky to connect with many passionate entrepreneurs worldwide.
What I've learned from a business perspective.
Because this is the formula for success, no matter who you talk to. Attitude will drive your behavior. Would you agree? And your behavior will drive your consequences every single time.
We got the concept. Okay, we got the concept. We got the equipment, right? We got the brand. You guys got that. And then again, we got the content that we create. That's the easy part. This is the big one, the big C, which is the commitment.
What should you do? That's right. All right. 10Xers, do not fail me. True test. Here it comes.
There's skill, and then there's will. Listen to what I'm saying. There is skill, and then there is will. And here's the interesting thing. I know a lot of people who have a lot of skill, but have no what? Will, right? You ever look at somebody who's successful, and you say, why them? Why not you? Yes, okay, that's me too.
You have more control, but your costs are also going to be what? Higher.
Now, here's where some of the magic is starting to kick in.
You can talk to any CEO in the B2B business, any CEO. You walk into his office and they only care about three things. People too. Yeah, he with the suit, put it up. There you go. I hope you can see this. I'll try to draw big. Let's pretend for a moment that I had 7 territories. You remember I wrote that out? Yes or no? Boom. Territory 2, territory 3, all the way to territory number what? 7. So now I've segmented my market.
So content is going to start being created by machines. And I'm telling you right now that those people, you guys, the content creators that connect with people are the ones that are going to win. Some people think, well, it won't work for my industry. Really? It'll work for any industry. Trust me. The majority of the time when we're looking to fix something, repair something, or learn something, where do we go? YouTube. We don't even want to read anymore. We go to YouTube. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong.
When you're doing your thing, beautiful things begin to happen. It's like the law of attraction kicks in. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're in line with the universe. Everything works. And when you do your thing, everybody gets an automatic MBA, which stands for what? Mega Bank Account Money. Are you with me? So we don't want to do a thing. We want to do a what? Beautiful.
All right, put it all together for Victor Antonio. Here we go.
All right, there we go. I'm not here to mess around. You ready to learn? Yes or no?
That's how it works in today's market. Whether it's B2B or B2C, you see the similar pattern. So how do you just, in other words, say you gotta start doing these things, pushing them, but also encouraging them. Oh, look at this. This is where it gets, dude, this is like so interactive with audiences, Matt. Can you imagine this with your customers? Check this out. Now, what does all this have to do with selling? It has everything to do with selling.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Sales After Dark, where money never sleeps. I'm back. I know I took a week off last week. I had to take it off. I just needed a mental break. I gotta be honest, man. So anyway, if you're joining me for the first time on Sales After Dark, here's how it works. So I'm gonna say hi to my friends who are on the chat right now, coming in on all channels. And so I'm gonna take some of those just suggestions, say hello and all that stuff, put it on the board, kind of, engage a little bit. Then I'm gonna jump into some content, and then towards the end, there'll be a Q&A section where you can ask anything you want. How's that sound? Blah. Man, I feel like I'm out of practice, man. It's been a while. I feel like I don't know. I've been working on a lot of different projects, so I'm super excited about some of the new projects that I got coming out, so more to come on that. But on that note, man, let's see who's in the house. I got Elke, says, my friend Victor Antonio, hope everything is going great. Thank you for all the high-quality content. Elkin, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. My man, Christo, I'm back, Christo. By the way, check out the mug. That's a Christo mug right there. Look at that cast-ahead mug right there, man. It doesn't get better. My girl, West Coast, Mia Knox. Always great to see you, Mia. Thank you for joining us. Joshua Brand from snowy New Jersey. Brr. My sister called me from Chicago. Says they're going to get like 10, 11 inches like that, and she was not happy about that, so stay warm. Stay warm. Meredith Elliott Powell from North Carolina, a little bit further north. Meredith is awesome. Hey, by the way, you want to check out a great sales lady? Take out the lady. Just put great. Check her out. She's awesome. Meredith, thank you for joining us. She has a program she does with Mark Hunter called Sales Logic, I believe. Check her and Mark Hunter out at Sales Logic. Great program. Love it. Kent Carlisle, what is happening? Can't catch you live, but I wanted to stop by in and say hello and a belated Happy New Year. Kent, that counts, brother. That counts, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then we got Jose Manuel Prado. Saludos from Chicago. Thank you for going live. Hermano, un placer. Stay warm over there. Ruben Lloyd coming in from Texas. What's happening, Ruben, man? Carol Parker says, man, do your what? Do your thing. There you go. Love that. Beth Spanier. That is kind of a cool name. Spanier. Do you say it like that? Like Spanier. Or do you say Spanier? Hello from Vermont. Stay warm, Beth. Thank you for joining me. All right, we got Sharia Iqbal. I'm going to go. I think I was close, right? Iqbal. So anyway, hi, Victor. Good morning from Malaysia and Happy New Year. Right back at you. Attending your session first time in 2021. Let's get it going. Let's get it going. My man, Brian Gator. What's happening? Las Vegas from the Strip. We should do that. One day if I go to Las Vegas, again, when we get to this in-person thing, maybe we should do a broadcast from the Strip. What do you think, Brian? That'd be kind of cool, right? Carol Parker from the hometown, Athens, Georgia. Hey, hey, hey. Gotcha. Brian Bauer, my man. There he is. Dude, I tell you, long time, man. It's always great to see you on here. North Cal Wine Country. Dude, send me a bottle of wine. What's up with that, man? Going great, but needing a reboot myself. I hear you, man. I hear you on the reboot, man. Thank you, Meredith. I appreciate you. My man, Doug Lehman. What's happening? Break it down in layman's terms. Doug's got some great interviews he's got posted on LinkedIn. Check him out. He's interviewing a lot of top speakers, trainers, and experts in the sales arena. Check out Doug Lehman. Follow him on LinkedIn, and you'll check out his stuff and see the interviews. What's up from the north side? 514 Montreal. I love the way you put. See, Dennis, that's how you write it. From the 514. There you go. You almost got to get gangster about it. That whole thing. You know what I mean. Anyway, Kenry, what's happening? Ready to learn something with ways, creating value from you. I hope that you are doing great. I'm doing good, man. I feel energized, man. I'm back. And one of the greatest salespeople I've ever met, literally, no joke, Mike Bonnet himself. Great to see you, Mr. 10X. I've said this before. I got a chance to go down and see Grant Cardone, and he let me hang out. Michael, can I say the bullpen? I say the bullpen, where all these guys work and make calls and are really just cranking out some serious phone calls. And so I got a chance to kind of just sit next to Michael Bonnet. He was very nice to let me sit next to him and just listen to the guy make calls, man. The guy's a beast, man. The guy's a beast, man. And by the way, besides being a beast, he's a really nice guy. So thank you, Michael, for joining us. What's up in layman's terms, man? Thank you, man. Herb Wash, what's happening? Your podcast is great as well. Thank you, Herb. By the way, super excited about the podcast. Check it out. For my Spanish folks, I'm adding podcasts in Spanish. That's right. So the first interview should launch, hopefully, Chris Stone will tell me, within the next week, we're going to launch our first Spanish interview on the Sales Influence podcast, Influencia en Ventas. First up is a gentleman by the name of Edward Rodriguez. You're going to love him, man. He's going to love him. So for my Spanish people, stop complaining. Stop hounding me for Spanish content. Aquí viene. Okay, so there it goes. Oh, God on me. That's cool, man. Relic Origins. What's happening, man? Right back at you, man. How you doing? A Balmy 72 from Texas. Erica Diamond. Long time, Erica. What's happening? Oh, my girl. There you go. Ed Rivera, good friend of mine, New Jersey. Are you still there? What's up? What I love about Ed, man, when it comes to technology, there's your guy, man. There's your guy. Donna Moody. Donna, I don't think I've seen you here before, but thank you for joining us. Naomi, the marketer. You just got to drop it like that. The marketer. Glad to make it on time for the live. Naomi, let's do this thing. Tarum is joining us from India. Hey, man, you got to chime in, man. Thank you for getting up early because I know you're getting up early. All right, let's do this. I was thinking about value, and as I was thinking about value, I said, I'm going dark. If it's going to be sales after dark, my board's got to be a little dark. That's what I've concluded. So TJ Salgado is chimed in just in time. Yes, you are. So I started thinking about this phrase. I think I invented a new phrase. I'm going to call them value lifters. That's my phrase. Coming up with a new phrase. I don't think anybody has that phrase. Coming up with a new phrase called value lifters. And I started thinking about this. When we try to create a value proposition, right? When we try to create a value proposition, I said, how do we do it? Because sometimes we need structure in how we approach creating value. See, it's easy to say, yeah, just create some value or create a value proposition or unique selling proposition. But how do you do that? Like, what are the dimensions of creating a value proposition? And I got this concept, not the value lifters, the concept of what I'm about to share with you from a gentleman by the name of Lee Saltz. Lee Saltz wrote a book called Sales Differentiation. Great book, especially if you're B2B enterprise sales. Lee Saltz, Sales Differentiation. And in there, he gave, I believe, 7 different ways that you can kind of figure out how to position your product with a company. And that got me to thinking about positioning, and I started thinking about, well, how do you position value and how do you create the value? So what I want to do is I want to go through several different categories of what I call value lifters. And these are things that you can incorporate into your presentation to create that value. Because again, it's easy to say create value, but how do you do it? So let's begin. I'm going to give you 4, 1, 2, 3. I got 4 different models I want to share with you. One I've already shared with you already, but I'll repeat it again. But I want to share with you 4 simple models. And as you're listening to this, think of your product, think of your service, and then ask yourself, just ask yourself, how do I use that to create value in my product or service, right? How do I use it to create my product, value in my product or service? So let's go with the first one. Let's say, the first one, I'm just going to call it spatial. In other words, when spatial, I obviously mean, like, how does your product or service, and again, I'm going to give you a long list, so this is like a buffet. Take what you want, leave what you don't want. When it comes to spatial, how does your product or service help with space? In other words, space, like literally physical space. So for example, if you're selling, let's say, health equipment, right? Workout equipment. Maybe your equipment is designed, it's so compact that it actually saves space in the person's home or garage or wherever they may have their workout center, right? So that's a spatial value lifter. If you're in manufacturing, here's a totally off the cuff example. Let's say you're a chip manufacturer, a microprocessor chip manufacturer, and let's say you created this new process to create these transistors within these chips that will save space within that chip. Well, again, if you're saving space within the chip, that'll allow you to put more processors in the chip and make it a more powerful processor. So that's a way of saving space. So the first question I have for you is, can your product or service help people save space in the physical sense? Keep that in mind. Now, the second is, it's temporal. I always like this word, which really means a fancy way of saying time, right? So, how does your product or service help with time? Can you reduce somebody's time? In other words, the time it takes to do something. Let's go back to the gym exercise. Let's say that you have this workout rack. I'm gonna call it a workout rack, okay? So it looks something like, it's a workout rack, and you got weights here, you got belts here, some bars there, you got chairs there, you can do sit-ups, whatever it may be. That's your workout space. That's your workout equipment. It's all compact. And first of all, it'll save you space, right? But also it'll save you time. Why? Because maybe you can move from routine to routine, right? From doing different types of exercises within that certain pattern in a very quick way. In other words, the adjustment period isn't that long. So that saves you time. So again, the question to you is, does your product help with time or space? That's the first set that I'm going to give you, okay? Time or space. Now, the second one, it's going to be, again, just think with me. Just be with me in the moment here, And by the way, I'll grab some of the comments later on in the live chat. So just be with me here. Now I'm going to give you
4 other ways to find value lifters. So I gave you space, I gave you time. Can you help them save space? Can you help them save time and build value around that? How about this? Does your product or service allow them to combine things? So in other words, let's say they're using 2 pieces of software. Does your software allow you to combine those 2 pieces of software into one? Does your product allow things to be combined so they don't have to have 2, they can have 1? And sometimes by having 2 into 1, you also save space and time. But how can you combine? Can you help them combine something? And if you can't help them combine something, do you have a product or service that will help them eliminate something? So in other words, you've come up with a certain product or service that is going to help them eliminate X, Y, Z, whatever it may be. Can it help them eliminate something? Check that out, okay? How about this one? Third one. Maybe you have a product or service that can replace. In other words, swap out something. Look, you're currently using this. Use ours. Replace it. And by the way, when you replace it, it's usually because it's faster, maybe saves more time and more efficient. So does your product or service help replace something? The last one, I think this is an interesting one. Does it help run something in parallel? Now, by parallel, I mean this. If you have a product or service, this will allow them to do this and this at the same time. Before, they had to do this first and that first, second, right? First, second. But now, with our product or service, we can run them in parallel. So this is the second model of value lifters. Can your products help with any of these? Now, again, here's where I want your brain to go with this stuff. I talked about time and space in the first set. And if you think about, can I help them save time? Then we create value around that. How do I help them create time? How can I quantify that? If I save them space, how much space do I save them, and how much does that save them in terms of revenue or cost, right? And in this case, the second set here, can my product help them combine, eliminate, basically replace, or run something in parallel? And if so, depending on which one, how does it do that? That's the second set of value lifters. Third set of value lifters. This one you already know, because I talk about this one all the time. And that is, how can your product help them increase revenue, reduce costs, or expand market share? There is, you know this, this is what I call the value trinity, right? How can your product help them increase revenue, reduce costs, or expand market share? Most people think about this and they get this, right? How can I do any of these 3 to kind of help them along? So again, and put some in the comment, like, how does it do that? How does it help? How does it help, again, lift the value? Because this is going to help you quantify. The last one I would say is, does your product or service help them recognize, this is going to sound weird, does it help them recognize, right, does it help them recognize unrecognized revenue? Sounds like a tongue twister, but here's what it means. Does your product or service help them recognize revenue that they didn't know was there? In other words, maybe you have a product or service that will allow them to maybe expand into new markets, expand market share, and generate new revenue. Maybe your product or service will allow them to add another product or service to your list of things you sell, and then generate a new product line to sell more. Right? Does it help them recognize unrecognized revenue? But it also may be unrecognized cost. In other words, sometimes people don't know where they're losing money. Sometimes companies don't understand where they might be losing money. So does your product help them recognize unrecognized cost? And once they realize the cost, they can reduce the cost. So 4 sets, right? The first 2, time and space. Can it help them with time and space? The second set, you look at combining, eliminating, replacing, or running in parallel. Third set, second set, right? Third set, increase revenue, reduce costs, expand market share. Another set of revenue lifters. Or the last one here is, does your product or service help them recognize unrecognized revenue or costs? This is interesting, right? If you can figure that out, how can your products do that? Now, I gave you about 7 or 8 there, ideas to kind of play with. So your goal now is to figure out what can I use here? So let's do one example. I talked about the workout example, and then I'll take some questions, by the way. So let me do the workout example. So let's say that you're selling a new piece of equipment, right? And again, it's an integrated piece of equipment where it has benches, pull-ups, has all kinds of weird things. That's just kind of my picture of the setup, right? The whole, you ever see those things? They're very integrated, right? They're very integrated. So I'm gonna call this the integrated workout bench. The integrated workout bench, also known as the integrated WOB, the IWOB. Hey, that'd be a great product, right? IWOB. I just made that up. IWOB. It's my new product. It's called the IWOB, right? The IWOB, integrated workout bench. And what the integrated workout bench is, it's integrated, right? Which means that, let's say if you have, for example, you have barbells, you have free weights, you have a chin-up bar, right? You have a chin-up bar, that whole thing, and a couple of other things. All that is now integrated within that. So it's integrated within that, all right? So one could argue easily that I'm gonna save them some space. Now, if space is valuable to them, then guess what? This is a value lifter. If they're paying for extra space, that's value. But maybe they have a big room and they have enough space. Even though I'm saving them space, I'm also creating more space for other things they may want. So there's value, there's an intangible value to creating additional space to give you more room to work out. So I can kind of sell it from the space standpoint. Now let's talk about temporal time. Now, if I'm selling the IWOB, right, how do I help them save time? Well, think about this. Instead of going from station to station to station to station, now it's all integrated within the IWOB, and all of a sudden, they can actually go through their workout that much faster. The adjustments are easy. Boom, next exercise. A couple of levers. So I'm saving them time, and that has some monetary value also. So I can do that, right? By the way, because I have the IWOB, the integrated workout bench, also, did I combine processes? I think I did. I combined a bunch of different workouts into one. So I can talk about that. I also eliminated the need to have all these different pieces of equipment. Again, value that I can talk about. Then it replaced a lot of stuff. And then the last one, again, I can run things in parallel. I don't think so on that one. I don't think there's anything to run in parallel there because you can't be two people at one time. But at least I can talk about how I combine, eliminate, and replace certain pieces of equipment. Now, so again, there's value there. Now let's look at the third set, which was increase revenue, reduce costs, or expand market share. Doesn't really apply in this one, but we could talk about how you're going to get through your workout faster, and it's going to save you time, which gives you more time to sell more, which could tie into revenue, right? You can kind of make that leap. But also, because you now have more time, right? You now have more time to what? To sell, to go out and sell or produce. We'll just say produce, which will increase your revenue. So being more efficient will help you do more things. So anyway, I'm just kind of brainstorming with you, but trying to give you an idea that as you start looking at your product or service, kind of freestyle in your brain and ask yourself, how can I use these concepts to create value and maybe create unrecognized value that the customer doesn't even see? When we talk about space, how does that work? Time, how does that work? How do I save money there? Combining, eliminating, running in parallel, right? Replacing, increase revenue, reduce costs, again, expand market share. And then highlighting unrecognized needs or unrecognized costs that they go, I didn't know I was losing money there. I didn't know it was costing me that much to run the business. I didn't know it was costing me that much time to get this done. And so that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. It's just value lifters. My new phrase, value lifters. How do we find value lifters and then quantify those values? Let me wrap up with this and then I'll take some questions. When we talk about value lifters, we still have to quantify them, right? For example, when I talk about saving space, I gotta tie that into something that is meaningful to them. Now, it doesn't always have to be about money. For example, if I got this integrated workout bench and it's opening up more space, although it's not real value in terms of time or money, it's allowing them more space to actually work out and maybe even be in a better mood. Again, and I can talk about how that puts them in a positive state, but I'll find some way to create value out of that. And if it is time that I'm saving them, that's an easy one to quantify. If I can save your work, if I can cut your workout with my integrated workout bench by, let's say, 15 minutes, let's say 10 minutes. Well, 10 minutes every day adds up to about an hour every week, a little over an hour every week. That's 4 hours a month. That's 4 extra hours you're gonna have, and you can quantify what an hour means to them. You're starting to get the idea. So as you're looking at your product or service, what are the value lifters, and then quantify those. By quantify, I mean put a number to them so they go, oh, I get it. And then maybe you'll have a better argument in creating a value proposition around your product. And that is all that I have for tonight. Now I'll take some questions because I saw the things just scrolling up and down, man. So let me go grab some questions. And there was a lot of them. You guys were kind of going crazy here. Love the illustrations. Let me just start here. A big hello from Sydney. Let me go back to the white. And again, I'll take some questions if you guys got questions. Smita, thank you for joining us from Sydney. TJ's back in the house. Hey, Brian, how have you been? Okay, great. You guys say hi to each other. Great book by Lee Saltz. I agree with you, man. It's a great book. Hit those likes and share buttons. Yeah, hit the like and share buttons. All right. So there, well, first of all, here is where you should be clicking on and then hitting that bell notification so you can be, told when I'm going live. And then right there, check out the Sales Velocity Academy when you have some time. By the way, got some webinars coming up. The next master class that I have is called Mastering the Upsell. It's based on my upcoming book, which I eventually will publish. But this is a half-day workshop on mastering the upsell. So I'm going to go through, I think, 17 different strategies you can use to upsell your customers. Now, the reason I'm going to really strongly suggest this master class is because, just listen to this number, that simply by focusing in on existing clients and upselling existing clients, upselling or cross-selling, doesn't matter, you can increase your revenue by 30%, up to 30%. Now think about this. It's easier to upsell existing clients than it is to go out and acquire new clients. But upselling is a strategy a lot of us don't apply. So keep that in mind. I think it's on the 19th of February, which is in about 2.5 weeks. So love to see you there. All right, what else we got here? TJ, great. You guys saying hi to each other. Ruben is sharing. I love it already. All right. So I already did. Brian, something about for sure, Master VA as well. Okay, great. I'll let you guys say hi to each other again. Index Universal Life has ROI, protection against market, tax advantage, and all these catastrophic, got it. Love it. Combine, eliminate, replace, or parallel, excellent points and great areas to explore. Value Trinity itself. Unrecognized, recognize the unrecognized. That's what I'm saying, right? I think that's an interesting phrase. I'm glad you picked up on it because it's interesting to recognize the unrecognized needs. So I don't know. I think it's a hit. I think IWOB is a hit. The Integrated Workout Bench. It's IWOB. Somebody's going to steal that from me, I swear. Let me see. Victor, how do you quantify the ROI for clients when you're selling an ROI service? Guitar coaching. How do you demonstrate the value of learning? Great question. I love that one already. Let me just kind of shrink this a little. So guitar coaching. Well, so guitar coaching. So it depends. If I'm talking to the student, I'm going to assume that the student is paying for it. Okay, let me just assume that the student is paying for it, or that it's not somebody's parent paying for them, right? So let's say you're talking to the person that you're training on a guitar, and you're training them, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do you quantify that? What I would do, Yasser, is I would figure out, well, how long does it take to actually master a guitar? Let's say there's 3 levels to guitar, right? My son played guitar, so there's 3 levels, right? And let's say that, when you start out to master level 1, it usually takes 1 year. I'm making this up, by the way. So again, I'm just trying to give you an idea of how you would do this. Let me take this off so you can see it. So I would do level 1 there, and then to get to level 2, that would take you about 3 years, right? And then, I don't know, to be like Ottmar Liebert. I like Ottmar Liebert, by the way. If you want to be like Ottmar Liebert, that'll take you 5 years, right? And so we can talk about, to reach mastery, it takes you about 5 years. So I would begin to tie into, what if we could push this all in and reach mastery, or at least, instead of 5 years, we can reach mastery in 3 years. You know what I mean? And there'll be shorter steps all the way down. So my question to you is, how much time do you think you're saving? If you don't like this approach, then ask this question. Here's a good question. Yes, sir. How much time do you think you're saving the student when you're training them? For example, you're teaching them a scale, right? Or there's certain things that they have to know, right? I'm trying to remember my music here. So you're trying to teach them some melodic scales, right? So they're trying to learn some melodic scales, but you're also teaching them like fingering techniques, right? And how to be faster with your fingers on the actual fretboard, right? And to learn these things, it could take a long time, but you're shortcutting that. So I would ask you, how much time do you think you're saving somebody when you're coaching? If you're coaching me on how to play guitar, you can say, Victor, you can learn on your own, and you can probably reach level 1 in a year. But if you allow me to help you, I can help you reach level 1 by the end of 6 months. And I can quantify this by saying, look, Here's a song by, I don't know. I'm trying to think of another guitarist that I like. There's Otmar Liebert. There's that Swiss guy. I can't remember his name, but he's a really fast guitar player. Steve Vai. Like Steve Vai, right? You want to play like Steve Vai. But let's say you can play a certain song and you consider, if you can hit this song, that's called level 1. Now, if I can help you hit that song and learn how to play that song with less than 1 year, how much time is that going to save you? Think about it. If the average person practices 2 to 3 hours and you can reduce that practice time, right? Really make that practice time more efficient and condense it into 1 hour, you're saving 2 hours every session. So I would figure out that ratio, Yasser. It's like, how much time? It's a good question. How much time am I saving the person versus them having to do it by themselves? So to learn a song, it would take them 3 hours. But I will teach you how to play that song within 1 hour. I just saved you 2 hours. What is that worth to you? Now, if you're training a professional, a professional person that works, not a professional guitar player, but a professional, like say, a VP of sales, right? Well, the VP of sales, his time is valuable. So if you're saving them 2 hours, that's a lot of savings, right? So they're going to say, to me, my time is worth, $500-600 an hour. So you just save them $1,000 to $1,200 an hour. So I would start quantifying like that. But to me, time is a very valuable thing that you can help people save. But I think you can quantify that by saying, look, if you were to do this on your own, it's going to take you a year. If you let me help you, I can help you get there in 6 months. Which would you prefer? And I think that's a good way of creating value. I hope I answered that. It's a great question. Never had that question. By the way, just bought the Sales Velocity program. You are awesome, Yasser. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, man. Hopefully that answer was clear enough. Specifically hoping to learn about how to quantify value to clients. Cheers. And if that was enough, man, just hit me up in a question again if you want me to be more specific. Deep indeed. This is like digging deeper into the value training. Damn, I'm not wrong in choosing Sales After Dark over our company webinar. Yeah, it's boring anyway. You're too funny, man. Thank you, man. Steve, Mecca, Victor, great content as always. What is the touch screen that you are using behind you to lecture right on demonstrate Let's Plan? Look below, Steve. And in the description, you'll find the links. I got the link for the smart board, and I also got, I updated the link with all my equipment that I actually used in the actual, studio. And by the way, I got some new camera looks, man. So I got that full screen, which you guys have seen before. Let me see if I can give you a new look. I'm gonna give you guys a new look here. I got this one right here. Check that out. That's a new look, yeah. So it's an off camera. I got over to the side so you can, I can just move around more. So I'm trying to integrate new cameras. I'm gonna redo the studio. And I think this one is just my phone, which I don't have plugged in. I can now hook up my phone. So I'm playing with different cameras. But anyway, everything's down below, Steve. Check that out. Brian Gator, what's happening? Yes, time. You are selling lost time by offering training versus doing it on their own. Again, yeah, that's an obvious one. Hola, Victor. Rogelio Jacinto from Salinas, California. Any tips on insurance sales, amigo? Yeah, sell it. How's that? Build value, create value. That's a big question, Rogelio. I mean, I'm not trying to avoid it. It's just a big question. When people ask me, Victor, how do you sell X? I go, well, there's different ways you can sell it. The question is, how do you... Look, people know they need insurance. I shouldn't say that. First, you need to make people aware that they need insurance, right? That's the first thing. You need to make them aware. Some people don't realize that they need insurance and the importance of insurance. The second, even if you made them aware, it doesn't mean they're going to buy it, right? So then how do you create that sense of urgency? And how do you build a narrative, a story around that value to make people understand that maybe putting something away now, investing in some type of insurance plan today, in the long run will protect you. And again, this is a big topic because, if I have high net worth individuals, this is an easy sell. If I have, I'll say somewhere in middle net worth, that's a little tougher sell. And if I have people who don't have a lot of net worth, they're going to say, well, it doesn't matter. So 3 different types of sales. And it's a really tough question to answer very quickly, but I will say, 1, make them aware. 2, create a sense of urgency. And usually it's the story you tell, the pitch that you give. You already know this, by the way, that builds that value story. But it's how do you get people? How do you connect with people, right? That's the hook. How do you hook people to listen to you and realize, because what you're doing with people when you're selling insurance, you're selling them a future product and you're selling them a maybe product. Like maybe you'll use it, maybe you won't. And that's what makes selling insurance tough. But you gotta really, I don't want to say play on people's insecurities, but you have to play on people's insecurities because you want to remind people that, life isn't a straight line. Look at this pandemic. This pandemic is a perfect example of unintended, or unexpected, events. And in our lives, we have unexpected events, right? And if something happens to you, I'm assuming some type of, like, say, life insurance or maybe personal injury insurance, that if something happens to you, how is that going to impact your family and your ability to earn money? First of all, your ability to earn money, and then how it's going to impact your family. So it's really creating that story to make people wake up and say, you really need something to protect yourself. So, and then, some great case studies and examples will be great. Your potential is limitless. I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to argue with that at all. Lots of love from India. Thank you, man. Can you give me some tips to crack sales interviews, please? To crack the sales interview. Man, can I tell you a story? I got a story for you. This is a true story. True story. So I got to find the picture, and I think I still have it on LinkedIn. So true story on the, I'm going to answer your question on the interview, but this is a true story. So over the holidays, during Christmas, right, I took the last, I think, week and a half, 2 weeks off. Really didn't do anything. I had just finished doing my 100th episode of Sales After Dark. I just wanted to take a break, do nothing. I'm downstairs, I'm chilling, I'm watching TV, fireplace is going, my little Dachshund Pebbles next to me. I'm just relaxed. Phone rings at about, not joke, about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. My phone rings. And I don't answer my phone. I just don't answer my phone. So don't bother calling me because I don't answer my phone. It is rare that I answer my phone. And this was one of those rare occasions. It could have been the glass of wine I was having. I was feeling in a very holiday mood. So I saw the number and I was like, nah, I don't want to answer this call. And then someone just said, just answer it. Something just said, just answer it. So I answered it. This guy cold calls me. And first of all, he's stunned that he actually got me. He goes, is this Victor? I go, yes, this is Victor. I go, no, really, is this Victor? I go, yes, it's really Victor. To make a long story short, he says, I have an interview in 2 days with a pest control company. I really need the job. And I guess I was just calling, really just to, hope that I could get you. And, he's just kind of going through the whole thing. And he was having a hard time talking. He says, I just need a job. I lost my job. I really need this job, so forth and so on, right? And I said, all right. So I said, well, tell me about the company. He tells me about the company, the pest control company. Company I know very well, by the way. And so I said, here's what you're going to do. Here's what you need to do in the interview. And so I walked them through the process of the interview, right? And if you've been, by the way, so Amarnath, go to in one of my Sales After Dark, I talk about interviews and I cover a lot of this topic of what I just told, what I told the guy on the phone. So I walked them through the process. Here's what you do. And there were basic tips. The first one is be assertive. Don't be aggressive, be assertive. Let them know you want the job. Let them know you're willing to work. Let them know you're willing to, again, just really understand the product or service they're offering. 2, give them a game plan. Tell them what you're going to do over the next 3 months. Give them a game plan. Here's what I intend to do. If you hire me, here's what I'm going to do over the next 3 months. Here's my plan, right? I'm going to study hard, make the calls, whatever, so forth. I said, and then 3rd, because you don't come from the industry, they're going to be reasons why they don't want to hire you. So if you know my blocking objections course, blocking objections, I said, learn how to block objections. And I said, here's how you block objections. So I walked them through one example, raise the objection and then block it, right? And so I think it was the first week of January, I get this thing on LinkedIn, right? And it's one of those requests and I just opened it up to see what it was. And it's the message, and it's the guy, literally, not just joking, it's with the selfie. He's doing a selfie. He took a selfie of himself wearing the company shirt, and he has the company car with the logo and everything, so he got the job, man. So anyway, one of those cool moments in my life as a sales guy, right, that you help people out. So again, check out some of the interviews I have or some of the content I have on interviews on Sales After Dark. I think I did a whole episode. And again, when you're going in to get a job, as I mentioned, be assertive, not aggressive. 2, people want to know, what do you intend to do over the next 3 months? Here's how I'm going to attack the market. Here's what I plan to do. And then the 3rd part was, they got reasons they don't want to hire you. Block those objections. And so I would begin there. So hopefully that helped just a little bit. Love the phrase value lifters. Yes, I'm gonna brand that. Let's see how fast that phrase makes it throughout the market. Value lifters. Time is money and money is time. Thank you, man. Thank you for joining. Inspired Life 1, 2, 3. What value proposition is a coach for entrepreneurs? What value proposition would you offer for entrepreneurs as a coach for entrepreneurs? There's, again, you got 3. I get this question all the time, Inspired Life. And so again, there's 3 ways of looking at this. And I've talked about this in my past Sales After Dark. I just mentioned 3. If you're a coach, right, then you can help the entrepreneur what? Increase revenue, reduce costs, expand market share, which we just talked about, which is a B2B value trinity, right? That's the B2B value trinity, right? And then I've said in the past, B2C. B2C is what? How do you help them physically? How do you help them financially? Money. And then how do you help them psychologically? Now, what do I mean by physically, financially, and psychologically? Sorry for the horrible handwriting. Physically, is it, when you're coaching somebody, can you help them physically? Is there something you can do to help them physically, right? Is there something you can do to help them financially, help them make more money, put more money in their pocket? And then the last one, psychologically. Can you help them get in the right mind state to actually do whatever they have to do, to perform better, to be optimized, right, to perform more? Because if I can help you get right in your brain, that'll probably help you what? You know, get physically better. So if I'm motivated because you fired me up, you put me in that right state, as Tony Robbins likes to say, change your state, right? Right? So if you put them in the right state, now physically they want to feel better about themselves, they're going to exercise. Because now they feel good about themselves and they're exercising, they're going to what? Perform better. They're going to make more calls. They're going to talk to more customers. Customers are going to feel the energy. They're going to lock more business down. So that is another value trinity. So there's different ways to approach that question. It's a broad question, but you get the idea. You can do something like that. So there's so many ways. Just sit there and craft it, you know, Inspired Life. Just sit there and craft it. How am I really helping people? I think this is the thing. I think we're looking for the magic bullet, but there is none. I need you to ask yourself, based on what you coach on, what you teach, how do you help them? Like really, how do you help them? Just really take the time to just walk through the whole process. You'll be amazed what you find. So anyway, Rogelio from Salinas, California. Any tips on value on life insurance? Again, you can do physically, financially, psychologically. How will this help you? Psychologically, you'll feel better. You'll feel that your family's taken care of. Psychologically, that's it, right? Financially, if something happens, this is how your company, you or your family is going to be covered, right? And then from a physical standpoint, maybe it'll motivate them to be more, aware of their health. But again, there's different ways you can position this depending on the customer. And the reason that's a tough question to answer, and I'm not trying to avoid it, is because it depends who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to a millennial who's, 28, 29 years old, they're still young, they're going, I don't need insurance. So I'd have to create a different value proposition for them. If I'm talking to a single person, that's a different value proposition. Now they're older, but they're single. If I'm talking to a married couple with kids, that's another value proposition. If I'm talking to seniors who are almost at the end of life, then that's another value proposition. So it really depends on the ideal client profile or the different personas you're talking about. But I would sit there and just figure out, what can I say? What is it that motivates them? And usually the answer to your question lies here. By that I mean is that if you just sit back and think is, I always think about, if I don't know how to sell you, I always start thinking about, why won't you buy? Now think about this for a second. If you think about your clients for a second and you ask yourself, well, why won't they buy? Why wouldn't I buy? And then ask yourself, why won't I buy? And then you come up with, 3 to 5 reasons why you wouldn't buy. Now your job is to take those 3 to 5 reasons you wouldn't buy and turn them into a value pitch, right? So for example, I wouldn't buy because I don't think I'll need it. Then I will create a value pitch around why I think you need it, even though you don't think you need it. And maybe even come up with, again, some examples or testimonials. Well, it costs too much. Because, this costs too much and I don't have the extra money. Well, you can make the argument that you do have the extra money. And here's why that little bit extra, you'll find it somewhere, can help you. And you don't have to buy this life insurance at this level. You can buy it at this level. So, Mr. Customer, I don't care if you start at this level or this level. I just want you to start. So that would be another value approach. So different ways to slice the pie on that one. So good question, though. Let me see. We got Victor. What do you recommend for presentation structure? Blunt and Iannarino, those two guys. You mean Jeb and Anthony Iannarino? What are they telling you, man? Iannarino says, lead with why, change, not why us. And they are correct. Ultimately, I want to show how we'll create the outcome they desire. What they're saying, I just did a podcast with Jeb Blunt. I think he posted it on Friday, and we just did a joint course. So shout out to Jeb Blunt and Anthony Iannarino. So what they're saying is, it is, because everybody starts with the why us, but nobody cares about why us. So you tell them why change. You got to build the why chain. And so the book that I would recommend, Keith Owu, I'll just think it's Keith, if that's your real name, Keith, read The Challenger Sale. The Challenger Sale is one of the best books I've read. Golden Shelf. I call my best books the Golden Shelf books. That's a Golden Shelf book because it talks about how you build that value. There are two books I love, Spin Selling and The Challenger Sale. Two books that I consider some of the best. If I had to add the third one, it would be Consultative Selling. But anyway, Spin Selling was all about what's the situation, what's the problem, what's the implication to your business, and then if you were to fix this, what's the need payoff, right? And then the Challenger talks about, how do you begin your presentation in terms of structure, which is what you're asking me now, with like insight, but penetrating insight that the customer goes, I didn't know that. So look at one of my past videos where I talk about the hero story. That'll answer some of your questions in there. And so, but it's all about building basically a story that first gets them to pay attention. And then eventually they want to know about you. But they first have to know that you understand their business, that you understand what they're struggling with. So if you walk in and you say, Mr. Customer, I said, here are 3 things that are impacting your business right now. A, da 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 da. B, da 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 da. C, da 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 da. And if you see them go, yeah, that's exactly what's impacting our business. That's why I'm here. And then now you introduce your solution, and then when you're presenting your solution, it should tie back to solving those 3 problems. That's the simplest way of putting that formula structure. A lot of people, I shouldn't say, I won't generalize, too often, salespeople start out with, who they are, what their company is, how long the company's been around, who the companies work with, all the products they have, the big logos of all the companies they worked with, and they kill 10 minutes, maybe 10 to 15 minutes talking about themselves. Where the customer's saying, I don't care about you, because you're not giving me a reason to care about you. I got problems, solve my problems. Can you solve my problems? So your first part of the presentation should be always about, let me tell you what you're going through. And you tell me if I'm wrong. And then you just list it all out. And they go, yeah, you're right. That's why I'm here. That's the short version of that. So as much as I hate to agree with those guys, I'm going to agree with those guys. All right. Tips for value proposition for entrepreneurs. Again, dude, you asked me that question 3 times. I thought I answered that, but thanks again, man. You're probably wondering if I was going to read that, but hopefully that helps a little bit what I gave you, okay? Inspired Life. Watching you with my GF. Let's go. Let's have a great Monday. If you're going to watch me with your girlfriend. That is the best thing to do. And hopefully you guys will get married, and then you guys will build an empire, have great kids, and then one day you'll say, I remember when I used to sit there with you and watch Victor. As you're getting old, Rogelio, gracias de nada, hermano. Been watching for a year now. Jorge, thank you very much. Steve Mecca, you're back. Answer, you're going to build value in your ability to instruct/teach more effectively than your competitors. Not even going to argue with that statement, because what Steve is saying here is really important. It's it's vitally important. By the way, check out the new mug. My man Chris Stone over at Cast Ahead gave me a new mug. So that's a Sales Influence podcast. If you're not subscribed to the Sales Influence podcast, why not? Great interviews. But what Steve's saying is really important, because you can have the same product or service as the competitor. This is where we're at today in today's market. We reach the level of product parity or service parity. By that I mean is almost all products are the same, almost all services are the same. But it is how you instruct, is what he's saying, and teach on value more effectively than your competitors that will determine whether you'll get the deal or not. 2 people can walk into the room with the identical same product. But if one person can articulate the value of that product in such a way that the customer goes, I never looked at it that way, never thought about that. Really? You can do that? It can save me that much? Then that person will win. It is how you instruct and articulate the value. It's not so much the product, because everybody almost has the same product, but it's how you instruct and teach more effectively than your competitor. Beautiful statement, Steve. You should put that on a plaque somewhere, Steve. I love that, man. Steve says, Santana, how could I miss that one? Black Magic Woman. How could I miss that one? I don't know how. Satriani. I like Satriani. We're getting into guitars now. Ace Frehley. Showman. I like that. Ace Frehley's in the house. All right. Fantastic, Victor. Out of curiosity, do you also offer one-on-one personalized coaching? Would love to run my business-specific sales challenges with you. If you go to my website, just go to victorantonio.com. The answer is yes. And I have a coaching program. You can sign up for a month, 2 months, whatever you want to sign up for. I got a couple of slots, so if you're interested, there it is, man. So thank you. What do we got here? We got Ruben. I'm so excited about your podcast because you reinforce the getting to know your prospects. I am finding some very unruly prospects. Wait a second, I'll squeeze this a little bit. That make up crazy excuses. It tries my patience, and even when I control myself and not blow them out, it still seems I don't get anywhere with them and waste a lot of time.
Yeah, Ruben. I mean, it's funny because I mean that's part of sales, right? Is that you're going to go through a lot of customers, and sometimes you're going to waste time. But I think what happens, and I think you're undervaluing yourself, because you and I know that every time you go through a process with the customer, you learn something, right? You learn why this customer wasn't the right customer, or you learn how you need to kind of adjust your pitch to create the value proposition you want. So all these different things you can use, you learn through this process. So I think this is part of, Jeb Blunt likes to use the word going through the crucible, right? That this forms who we are as salespeople. So hang in there, man. Hang in there. Don't give up, man. Taj, the Great One, says, hi, guys. What's happening, the Great One? Love it. Aaron Escobedo or Escobedo, one of the two. Coach Victor, always bringing the fuego, man. Thank you, man, for joining me. Brian says, Chris Stone still rocking the opening, man. Yeah, he does a great opening, man. So if you love the opening, give him a hand. Yo, Victor. Yo, Brandon. What's up? I'm in sales, and there seems to be a disconnect when I'm selling luxury products over $3,500. I don't change my process from when I'm selling products that are under $3,500. And I like the way you put and. See, that lets me know there's something. And I have huge success there, but I don't know what I'm not saying to get people to pull the trigger. When I'm selling luxury products over $3,500, I don't change my process. So in other words, you're selling. That's an interesting one. What are you selling, by the way? You should have put that in there. What are you selling? What's a luxury product? Is this a $3,500 luxury product? So when you're I'm selling under $3,500, but that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? If you're selling something less expensive, you're more likely to get buyers, kind of. But maybe you're selling to the same clientele personas at above 3,500 than those below 3,500. So for example, I'm guessing here, Brandon, I'm taking a shot at the dark at what you're asking me, okay? So maybe, for example, if my persona 1, when I sell to these folks and I sell under $3,500, I always close, right? But if I understand you correctly, when I push over $3,500, I don't close it, right? I don't close. Maybe that's because you have the wrong persona. So you got to sell to a different type of persona, a different type of person or clientele. So maybe you need to shift over anything under $3,500. There's typically this persona or clientele, and then anything over this would be something like that. That would be my guess without really knowing your product or what you're saying. But I love it, man. Rogelio, create value. I got it, man. I love it. Story around the value. The storytelling. I interviewed. I forgot his name already. I think I'm getting old, man. I forgot his name already. He wrote the Challenger Sale. It'll come to me later. But anyway, he said something. It's funny. I can remember his quote, but I can't remember his name. Brent Adamson. There you go. Brent Adamson, who was co-author of the Challenger Sale, said something interesting. This is for Rogelio and probably Brandon also. He goes, it's not when customers are making a buying decision, it's not what they know, it's how they feel about what they know. And I already said that, it's a mind-blowing statement. It's not what they know, it's how they feel about what they know. And so if you kind of like, let me just get this off real quick. If you kind of think about that, it's a really interesting statement. It's an intriguing statement. So it's not what they know, it's how they feel about what they know. So in other words, you can tell them, you can give them a lot of information. It does this, it does that, it does this, right? All this. But if they don't feel comfortable with what they know, or feel comfortable, in other words, understand what you're really selling, they won't buy. It has nothing to do with the actual tangible assets or values or attributes of the product you're selling. It has everything to do with their perception, how they feel about what they know. And I love that phrase because if you think about insurance, let's go back to insurance for a little bit. People know about insurance, but it's how they feel about the insurance that holds people back. It's not so much the logic of it. They get it. It's not too hard to understand insurance, right? But it's how they feel about the insurance that determines whether they'll buy or not. And I think it's a fascinating statement in anything you sell, because you can explain everything logically to somebody, but if they don't feel comfortable knowing with the information you've given them because you didn't tell the right story, you didn't give them the right narrative, then they're not going to feel comfortable and they'll say, let me think about it. It's not because your product is bad or it's not worthy. It's just that I don't feel
good about this decision. And I think that's an interesting statement. So anyway, I just thought I'd add that one to yours. Anyway, Rogelio says, thank you so much, Maestro. Love it. Let me see. 777 super chat. That line you said, is there any reason we shouldn't get started? It really works. Thank you. It does. It's my favorite line. Is there any reason we shouldn't get started? Because now they got to give you a reason. So, whenever I finish something, is there any reason we shouldn't get started? Is there any reason we shouldn't just go ahead? And it's a real nice statement. It's not pushy. Is there a reason? If there's a reason, let me know. And then the tech world is loaded with lifters. Just need to position better than the competition. There it is, Brian, right? Because there's so many ways you can look at. Like Brian and I came from, and he's probably still in the telecom space, I think. So we came from the telecom space where, the thing is, my telecom box does this, their telecom box does that, and they're almost the same. There's subtle differences, but it's how you position the box with the client that determines whether they'll buy or not. So you're spot on, man. It's determining that value. So I love that, Brian. Thank you, man. Pebs rocks. We need to see a new pic of the SAD mascot, man. I'll get a picture of Pebbles going. Sorry I'm late. Pete, Primo, what's happening? Glad you could join us, man. Value Lifter, the Spanx of sales. I don't know how I feel about that, man. A solid story on how you help a guy for his interview story, selling your way to help. Yeah, that was a great story. I'm gonna go get that picture. I think I'm gonna show it to you guys next time I got it. All right, so cool. You guys are saying hi to each other. Victor, what are your views? Does certification help in sales? If so, can you recommend any? Does certification help in sales? Like if you're like, oh man, Tarun, you're asking the wrong guy. Here's why. I'm so against certifications meaning anything. I know that's not what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear, but I'm just being honest. I know a lot of speakers, like I'm a pretty good speaker on stage. All right, I think I'm a pretty damn good speaker on stage. And I speak better than a lot of speakers on stage, right? But I don't have any credentials. I don't have any certification. I've never joined, for example, the Professional Speakers Network or the National Sales or National Speakers Association. And I know speakers who have all the credentials, all the certifications, but they couldn't talk their way out of a box. But yet they got the certification because they checked the boxes. So although certifications are important when, let's say you're trying to get a job, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't really help you in selling. You know what I mean? Because you can have all the certs you want, all the certifications you want, but if you can't sell, you simply can't sell. Now, if you're using it to demonstrate to your employer that you're a serious salesperson and you want a position within the company, and here are my certifications, my credentials, that I get that part, right? I have 2 degrees. I have an electrical engineering degree and an MBA. And I got to be honest, I can't even tell you where those degrees are because I don't put them on my wall. They've never been on my wall. I've never put my degrees on my wall because, they were years ago, they were on my resume, and that's the only place you would see them because at the end of the day, when it came to selling, people just want to know, can you sell? And the only certification they want from you is that invoice or purchase order that you just got signed. So I'm not the right person to ask. I think they're worthy. If you can find a program that'll give you a certification that'll help you, right? And you take a test and you certify that, yeah, I went through this course, I learned all these things. That just says what you've learned. It doesn't say you can sell. You know about selling, but I still don't know if you can sell. But I think if you're trying to get a job, I think it does help. I think it does. I really do. It just shows that you're committed, that you really want to be in sales. Up to that point, I'm with you. Beyond that, I don't know what else could say. Okay, you guys just got some general comments. You're saying hi to each other. Elkin, deep content today, Vic. What was the name of the book you mentioned today? I missed the name. Oh, I forgot what book I mentioned. Let me see. I mentioned the Challenger Sale, and that's for a B2B sales, enterprise sales system. That's one book I mentioned. The other book I've always liked, it came out back in the 80s. I think it's still a great book. People criticize it. I'm like, I think it's a great book. It's called Spin Selling, S-P-I-N, Selling. And I think I mentioned consultative selling. So, but if I were to say which is the one you get right now, the Challenger Sale. It's still a book. It was written in published in December of 2011. So it's 10 years old now, and still one of the best books on selling, and still relevant 10 years later. Man, time flies, man. You're welcome, Inspired Life, man. Thank you. Daryl Perry, what's happening? Love the term value lifters, man. I'm telling you, man, it's a great term, man. I just came up with it today. I said, yeah, let's find value lifters. Great coaching to the why, to not buy. I love it, man. There you go. What else? I always talk to my reps about just because there's no reason to say no doesn't mean there's a reason to say yes. There it is, man. I don't know. That's like profound, man. Put that on a mug or a shirt or something, man. I love that. You are answering everything I needed to do with the value trinity and anticipating objections. The anticipating objections, the whole blocking objections, because everybody, again, I'm that guy. I'm the guy that's leading the charge on blocking objections, right? So, by the way, if you go online, you'll probably be able to find a free copy of my book, Response Block Selling. Response Block Selling. Just put Response Block Selling PDF. You'll be able to find it. If you understand blocking objections, it is a much more powerful strategy than trying to overcome objections. I'm telling you right now, if you just shift your thinking and think blocking objections, you will feel that sales resistance go down in any sales you're in. So I can't emphasize enough. Kanishka Majumdar from Singapore, thank you for joining me. A little late, but you joined me nonetheless. So anyway, glad you're here. Can you solve my problem? Yes, it really is that simple. Right. Let me see. Chill with dogged. I have no idea what that means, man. I'm not hip, man. Tabish, I'm not hip, man. I don't know what that means. Elbow cough with chill dog. I'm totally lost. I'm lost. All right. God bless you all. Keep up the hard work. Arcade Eyes, thank you, man, for stopping by, man. Mark Rodriguez says thank you. Right back at you. Cleveland, you got one here. Victor, grateful you addressed my question. Thank you for all you do. Keith, thank you very much. Hope it helped. Like I said, it's hard to answer without knowing products at time. Prince of Babylon. Now, see, that is a man who is modest. He is a modest person. I am the Prince of Babylon. He could have said king, but he went for the prince. He is a modest man. Hello, Victor. I think to change my current job as engineer to online business. What are your thoughts on this? Jumping to an online business is not that easy. It's becoming more and more competitive. By the way, I love your enthusiasm for wanting to jump, but be careful. I mean, one of the mistakes I made, Prince of Babylon, is, when I left corporate America, I just left. You know what I mean? And I wish I would have created the business on the side in parallel and then had an exit strategy. It would have made my transition into my own business that much easier. So I would say, as an engineer, if you're earning decent money, which I assume you are, take some of that money and begin investing it into this online business on the side. And you don't have to do everything yourself. You can hire people, right? There's websites like Upwork. I love Upwork. You can find people to do stuff for you. And then build your stuff on the side. And then when you feel like you got some revenue coming in, and then maybe transition out. That's what I would do. So that's just me. Zinur, I think it's Uzbey. Man, if I got that right, let me know. Thank you from Istanbul. Love Istanbul. Love your airport. In Istanbul, they got that hotel where you can rent, I think, minimum 2 hours. By the way, if you're ever traveling international, again, when we start traveling again, I always like stopping through Istanbul because inside the airport, they have this hotel that you can rent out for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. And after like an 8-9 hour flight, sometimes you just want to go lay down for a couple of hours instead of just waiting in the airport. And it's a great little hotel. It's a great airport, man. I love that Istanbul airport. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Good morning, Victor. I'm a sales trainer for automobile dealership. We deal in Nissan and Mercedes-Benz. Nissan and Mercedes. Okay. My question is, how do we get connected to both segments, the prospects, to convince them? How do you get connected to both of them? Well, I don't know. I mean, when somebody comes in, if they're looking for a Nissan, I know I'm dealing with one type of buyer. A Mercedes, that's probably another type of buyer. It's such a big question, Cheaton. I don't know how to answer that question because how do we get connected? Again, it depends on their motivation. Here's the thing. A lot of people, and I'm just giving you, I'm assuming this is international, so I'm going to give you the U.S. perspective. The U.S. perspective is that people do research online before they even get to the dealership. A lot of people already know. And so that means, think about this. Here's the optimistic side of being in the car business. I think it was about 5 years ago, and I forgot what the name of the organization is. I think it's NADA, the National North American Dealer Association, NADA. Basically came out with a study that says on average people would visit 3 or 4 dealerships, and it could have been like 10 years, 5 to 10 years ago, somewhere in there, right? Today, people on average visit 1.3 dealers, right? Essentially, they visit 1, maybe 2 at most. They're visiting 1 dealer, which means what? That they know when somebody walks onto that lot,
They don't walk on because they're lost. They don't walk on them because they don't want a car. They walk on them because they've done the research. They know what car they kind of want, and bam. So if I were you and I want to get connected with somebody, I would say, they come onto the lot. I said, what brings you in today? I know it's a standard line. What brings you in today? And then why did you choose us? I mean, what a brilliant question to ask. So why did you choose us? And then they said, well, we're interested in this type of car. What car are you thinking of looking at? Are there a couple of options? They'll say, yeah, I'm looking at a Mercedes. I'm looking at a Mercedes this, S-Class, and I'm looking at a Mercedes that. I said, out of curiosity, how much research have you done on these two cars? Like that, I don't know how much I should explain or shouldn't explain. That question, how much research have you done, is probably one of the best lines of getting information from people. Because if they start telling you, well, I've done a little bit of research on this, this, and this, and this, when they do a lot of research before they got there, that to me is a good buyer. When they've done no research, I have no idea of price, that's a horrible buyer. So one way of qualifying them, if I can say it this way, is to ask them how much research have they done. In a very find your own way of asking that, but I think it's a really relevant question to ask early on. That's the best I can do. You're asking me a big question that probably takes a 2-3 hour sit down with you just to go through. So anyway, Prince, do both for a while you develop the skills. Hector Rivera is on the money. I love that. Let me see, Brian. Sales influencers, awesome interviews with real salespeople. Yeah, check out the Sales Influence podcast. In there, I do interviews with people who are in sales or just in the game of sales training. Thank you. I'm a very transactional salesperson. I'm working on the emotional side. That's honest, man. That's honest. Tristan with the awesome logo. So uncover how they feel and have a story that reassures their mindset. Yeah, I mean, because it is how they feel. It's, again, Tristan, you can deliver the content, right? Let's assume you know the content, you can deliver the content. Then what you need to do is figure out a way to connect with them in a sense that they go, I get it. I can see how that's going to help me, because that's the part that you have to connect with. And I don't want to say, get in touch with their feelings. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that let them know how your product or your service is going to impact their life and to make their life much easier. That's what I mean by the emotional impact, not make them cry. Joke, right? You know what I mean. Jesus. Okay, good to catch you live, Victor. How often should one revisit his or her persona profiles given the shift in behavior due to the pandemic? Gian, my man from Ayala Land, did an event by the Ayala Land Premier is... they sell luxury apartments, and they're in the Philippines, and I did a live event for them. Well, I guess a virtual event with them, and so it was really cool. So anyway, Gian, thank you for that. So it's a really great question. It's probably one of the best question I had tonight so far, because it's how often should you revisit? Because of the pandemic, it's a great question. The answer is I don't really know, actually. Because everything's changing, right? And the thing is, people who were in a good position last year are probably in a bad position this year. So that's a tough question to answer. It's a really good one. You kind of stumped me on that one, because I don't know how often you should revisit them. I mean, the safe thing would be to say, every 3 months, go back and revisit what that persona looks like. Another way to maybe answer the question, if I go a different angle, is I would start looking at, what if you and I agree? Let's say we're on the same sales team within the company. What I would do is I would go back into my data, right? And say, okay, maybe every 3 months, or even every month, depending on how you want to do it, go back and say, who's buying, who's not? And then what are those personas that are still buying? And obviously, the more often you check, like if you checked every month, you're going to get more accurate data than if you do it every 3 months. But sometimes, over 3 months, you'll probably get a better sampling. So let's just say 3 months. But every 3 months, you and I get together, and we look at the numbers for the past 3 months. Who's bought, who's not? And what are some of the attributes of these personas? And maybe begin to, rejigger, change what the persona attributes should be. So it's a real good question, but I would say maybe 3 months and then go back, but using the data to go back and look at it across Ayala Land. And then let's say if it's across the Philippines, what areas of the Philippines, right? What are the locations? What were some of the attributes near that actual condo that we sold? For example, if I'm selling condos in a certain area, what is it that's selling? Because maybe it has nothing to do with the persona, it has everything to do with the attributes around the condo. For example, here's a high luxury condo, but it's about 1 mile from the beach, or it's about 1 mile from a forest preserve or something, a place you can go walking or biking. So there might be other attributes that go beyond the actual persona and maybe an attribute of the actual condo or property that you're selling. So great question, man. Great question, man. So, all right, Brandon, retail sales, mattress. So you're selling that. It's interesting because, we got one of those beds, man. We got one of those air beds, what do you call that? I can't remember the name. I'm telling you, I'm getting old. But yeah, and even those, I mean, we paid a lot of money for that bed. And we were, and again, see, that's a perfect example when we talked about the two personas, because above the 3,500, I would sell that to people who are older, like me, right? Older, who needed a better sleep. Then young people don't need a lot of sleep, so they don't care if their mattress is a little uncomfortable. So again, I would adjust the personas around that. All right, I'm gonna start wrapping up here. I gotta go. It's been an hour already. Hector, you're right. I do this both. Probably I can choose. Okay, for dropship for Amazon. Yeah, again, figured out on the side. A couple more of them out of here. How to overcome the limitation of tribal competition on sales. I mentioned the word tribal to avoid the controversial word racism, but you just said the word racism. How to overcome the limitation of tribal competition. This is an interesting question. Nobody's ever asked me this question because nobody wants to touch this question. But I'm going to go there. I'm going to touch this question because I think there is something to it. I think there's, in Cialdini's book, Influence, Robert Cialdini wrote a book called Influence. And in there it talks about, the rule of association. And that is, if we belong to a certain golf club, that we'll connect, right? That rule of association. Like, if we belong to the same sorority or fraternity, we see each other, hey, you belong, oh, I belong to that. Or if you go, for a certain sports team, then it's the same thing. But it also works in terms of, it has nothing to do with race, though. It has everything, when you look at, well, let me define what I think you mean. Is, so if I'm Hispanic, I can sell to Hispanics, right? If you're African American, you can sell to African Americans better. If you're Caucasian, you can sell to Caucasian. And that's kind of what we think it is, right? Here in the U.S., I don't think that really exists. Anybody can sell to anybody, so we don't see that a lot. But let's also be honest that when I, as a Hispanic, run into of Hispanic origin, right? I'll say it that way because people always ask me, are you Hispanic or American? American of Hispanic descent, right? So as an American of Hispanic descent, when I run into another Hispanic, whether of American descent or just came from Latin America, I have this affiliation, this automatic connection. That's just natural, right? Now, you may come in and say, let's say you're Caucasian, right? And you meet the same person at the same time, but you don't have the connection. And so you think it's about race. It's not about race. It's just about things in common. I'll give you another example. So I was raised in Chicago. Now I'm living in Atlanta, Georgia. Two different cultures almost, you know what I mean? Chicago, one culture. Georgia, another culture, right? But again, it's not that, one is trying to exclude me from the other. It's just people feel comfortable. It's familiarity is the word I'm looking for. So then if we can agree, it has nothing to do with race. Deep down inside, it has everything to do with familiarity. Then how do I establish more familiarity with my clients? I think that's a way of broaching that subject, right? Look, if somebody's going to be tribal, right? Tribal, well then don't sell. Find somebody else to sell to. But maybe it isn't tribal. Maybe it's because you don't belong to that tribe. They see you as an outsider. So that's a trust issue. It has nothing to do with who you are. It has everything to do with who they think you may or may not be. It's a trust issue. So how do we build that trust? And how do we create that familiarity? Look, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? Same needs, same wants. Everything else is a construct. It's all categories. If you think about it, I mean, whether you're from Malaysia, India, United States, these are all categories, right? Depending on religion, these are categories, right? At the end of the day, if we sat down, you and I would agree on probably 99% of things. We would. Do we all want to live a better life? Yes. Do we all want to be left alone and peace? Do what we want to do our way. Do we all want to make money and just live a comfortable life? Do we all want to give our kids things they've always wanted? Do we all want to live a life where we get old, we're going to be comfortable, take care of our family? Do we all want to do that? Of course we do. So my question to you is, how do I gain or establish more familiarity? But I think when you come across tribal, it has to do with trust. The question is, how can you demonstrate trust? How can you prove trust? And I think one way to gain that is establish familiarity, things we have in common. And so I've done this. I've traveled the world. I'm telling you, I've traveled the world. I think I've seen it all, in terms of people who are nice to you and people who are not so nice to you, people who are tribal and people who are not tribal. At the end of the day, there's almost 8 billion people on the planet. I'll find somebody to sell to. If you don't like me, that's okay. I'll find somebody else to sell to. I don't know if I answered your question, but I mean, that's the best I can do, man. Thank you, TJ. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, Victor, thanks for the video. You're cool. All right, we'll wrap up. Just one more. Let me see. Rajev. Hi, Victor. Nice saying. How they feel on what they know and makes them buy. I love it. Yeah, it's how they feel about what they know. Brent Adamson came up with that. I think it was just a great line. So I really love that. A couple more. Mr. D, how do I close with customers who are buying one product but won't buy anything to maximize their experience and the long-term value of the product? Mr. D, that means something in your presentation is missing. Something in your presentation is missing that's not showing them the value of, look, if you get that and this, putting this together. But again, keep in mind, again, and if you want, I'm not pushing, I'm just saying, the course I'm doing on February 19th, which is called, just go to my website, Victor Antonio, the master class I'm doing is on mastering the upsell. And I'm gonna show you 16 ways that you can approach somebody and how to upsell them. And phrases that you use, how you phrase something, how you enter into a conversation can make all the difference in the world. So if you're interested in that, again, check out the master class. But it really is in the positioning of the product. And I'll talk about that in the master class, how it's really how you position at the product, the upsell, not when they've made the purchase, but before, when you were having the discussion. During your presentation, you should have made the attempt already to at least point them to some upsell. So when you get to the end, the upsell becomes very familiar. That's the short answer to a longer conversation. Taz, a great one. Victor, any suggestion for me? I sell portable oxygen concentrators to patients with respiratory issues, which as COPD, I don't know. Many patients are holding back on buying because they're not going out as much. They're not going out as much. I see. So in other words, people who are, okay, so I mean, like even in this case, sell portable oxygen concentrator to patient with respiratory issues, right? Because they're not going out. So if they're not going to, but what if they had to go out in an emergency, right? Can they go out? I mean, I would find a scenario to try to, so there's two ways. One is, if they're not buying it because they don't believe they're going to go out, then I would sell to people who have to go out and have respiratory issues. So there's two buying personas here. There are people who have respiratory issues but don't have to go out. They're not going to buy. There's people who have respiratory issues who need to go out. For whatever reason it is, they got to go to the doctor, they got to visit family, they got to do something. And so I would try to find those personas. Like, again, it's all about defining what markets you go after. But if you're going after a market that says, but I don't go out. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Because we're not speaking anymore publicly in person, right? Every year I would buy at least one new suit, right? Just to rotate them out, one new suit. But because I'm not traveling, I have people who contact me who want to make me a custom suit. I go, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything, right? And I got enough jackets or suits. I'm not, you know what I mean? I can use the suits I have because I'm not doing as many events and they're all virtual and everybody's dressing down now, so I don't need it. And so they keep coming back trying to sell me this. Like you're saying, you're not getting it. I am no longer your ideal persona. This gets back to what Gian was talking about, Ayala Land and the ideal persona changing. See, I used to be an ideal client for a person who was selling custom suits. Because of the pandemic, because I don't travel anymore, I'm doing virtual and everybody's dressed down in virtual, I don't need suits anymore. So stop selling to me because I'm not your persona anymore. So that's where you have to make the changes. So I don't know if that helped, but it's a good question. Anyway, I got to wrap this up. And let me go with, I just want to highlight a couple of things here. Let me close this out. Let me close Brian out right there. Go back here. Again, if you haven't, again, there's the share button right here, the subscribe button. By the way, if you really like it, hit the like button, share it with somebody else. Check out the Sales Velocity Academy. And my final thoughts for tonight would be something like this. When you're looking to create these value lifters, again, go through the list I gave you and say, how can I create value? It's really hard for you and I virtually to have this conversation with some of you who say, Victor, help me create a value story around insurance. Help me create a value story, again, around oxygen, whatever, concentrators, whatever it may be. It's not easy to do that. What I want you to do is go through everything I just shared with you today and say, how can I help them with, for example, space? Can't help them with space. Maybe the oxygen concentrators are smaller, more portable. Okay, maybe that would help. And the other would be time. How could I help them with time? And then we talked about value, right? All the stuff, the increased revenue, reduce costs, expand market share. How can my product be combining things, eliminating things, replacing things, running things in parallel, things of that nature. And create a value story. Somebody in the chat asked a question about how should you position your value? Should you talk about you or your product, you or them? Always begin the presentation with them, understanding what their need is. Really understand what they're struggling with. Then figure out what your value story is. And I think the big takeaway for tonight, aside from the content I gave, is what Gian asked, is that your persona will change over time and maybe has changed. And maybe you're still trying to sell to the same persona. For Brandon, who was trying to sell, $3,500 product, he's trying to sell that product to everybody, even above $3,500, and they're not buying. Maybe because it's a different persona, or maybe the personas change over time that he needs to redefine the persona. My point is that unless you rejig or rechange your persona, maybe you're selling to the wrong people. Maybe they're not buying the life insurance because you're selling to the wrong people. This pandemic has changed so many things that only when get some distance from it, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we'll look back and go, I understand what was going on. And one of the big aha moments we're going to walk away with is that the world of selling has changed forever. It has changed forever. And subtle things like this, persona changes, how we approach customers, how they're more informed, how they're going online, how it wants to be more virtual, how this has become more acceptable. All this is in play right now. So we're trying to understand this and figure this out as we're trying this remote selling, environment. So my point here is that figure out what your value story is, but use these value lifters to kind of give you an idea of where can I lift my value? And then maybe you'll be in a better position to sell them. And on that note, this is Victor Antonio. I'm out of here. Check out again the Sales Influence podcast. Got some great interviews coming up, and we're going to be adding the Spanish interviews as well. And other than that, if you get a chance, check out the master class, January 19th, Mastering the Upsell. That's all I have for tonight, guys. Take care. Thank you for joining.